Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Laurence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So I have a cool episode here today with Kristofer Lenz from, so he's made his own company reasonably recently, right? And it's called Kailos, right? Kailos, sorry. You've just corrected me and I still got it wrong, but Kailos. And again, he's got a great background. He's been with Grant Thornton, he's been with MGO, and then he's also worked for some other firms on the marketing side. And what we were going to talk about today is a little bit on what firms need to be thinking about when they're talking about marketing. We had a discussion the other day around his involvement with the outsourcing elements as well within the firm and what type of branding and marketing needs to be done internally. So we'll talk a little bit about the outsourcing as well, but we'll focus a little bit on more so on the AI and the marketing piece today. So Chris, thanks for joining today, and really appreciate you jumping on and sharing some of your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So tell us now that I butchered your company name already. I mean, tell us a bit more about your firm. Sort of what drove you to start Kailos and what you're doing for firms now.
Sure. Yeah. So I founded Kailos Marketing Lab at the end of last year, really responding to where I saw is a need in the marketplace. So I was in-house with CPA firms on the growth and marketing side for the better part of 10, 15 years. And everyone who works in the industry knows that marketing and growth are famously understaffed and undersupported. And so people in those roles are typically wearing multiple hats, scrambling around, just trying to get the job done. And there's little room, I think, for exploring and bringing on innovation. So when I left my last firm, I was upskilling myself, just kind of learn what was available in the marketplace, and I really dove into all the different AI tools and automation possibilities, and realized that unless you have somebody who's an expert in these kinds of things, if you're not doing this stuff already, that you would really have nowhere to start. There's hundreds of different potential applications, ways to use them, and so on. And so I founded Kailos Marketing Lab as a fractional CMO / AI consulting firm where I combine traditional marketing and growth strategy across brand, digital, content, and so on, with an eye of looking at firms, assessing their current operations, and making recommendations to incorporate AI tools and automations where it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the cool aspects that you talked about. Just that, again, I think that marketing is definitely one of those areas that has been drastically affected, like most other industries as well with AI. But it's just become such a great tool that you can leverage, right? And you can automate more things than you could ever before when it came to the marketing side. However, it's not the simplest because there's so many different tools that can be used, with some of them just micro variances, right, between them, right? But there is one that's better for a certain use than another one, right? It's like a rabbit hole diving in, and if trying to figure that out and having somebody that can just sort of guide you and point you in the right direction is a lot easier. So what does that look like for firms currently? I mean, what is the AI usage look like for firms when it comes to the marketing side of things, and what should they be using at a minimum, right? And where do you see sort of the biggest gaps out when that comes up?
Yeah, so I think there's the three biggest opportunities for accounting firms in the CPA world are start with content. So the thing about accounting firms is that your partners, your service providers really truly are experts. And the real differentiation in the space is on your brand and building trust. Now, everyone who might have 10 plus years of experience working with these partners who are geniuses, brilliant at what they do, but they have day jobs. They're accountants. They're doing client service. And so when you come to them with marketing projects, a lot of times they're really enthusiastic. They really want to participate, but they just don't have the bandwidth. And there's this in marketing, this get out of jail free card, essentially. If they request a project and you're working with them and they say, okay, it's time for your review, or I need you to contribute now. They say, well, I have client deliverables, and then it shuts the conversation down. And sometimes you wait, sometimes it times out, sometimes it's months later, sometimes you get a busy season. There's all kinds of reasons. And so using AI for content generation is an incredible tool. You could build outlines, you could take first drafts of articles, and really get the ball rolling. Something that used to take hours and hours of sitting down, interviewing partners, taking notes and transcribing all of that is now something that you can get first drafts done relatively quickly. And almost as importantly, there's an entire world of posting the content, distributing it, versioning it into social media that it takes, a lot of us low-level marketing associates and assistants to help with. That all of that can now be automated, where a project from beginning to end, as far as getting a piece of thought leadership out, turning it into presentations, turning it into social media posts, all of that can be done in a matter of hours instead of potentially months. So that's the first one. And the second one that I think is the biggest priority area is in business development. A lot of firms don't have a proper traditional sales role where the partners it's on them to build the business themselves, get out there, make connections and all of that kind of stuff. And again, same problem comes up where they've got client deliverables, they're extremely busy, they're working on their own book of business. And there's an incredible and easy to use automation and AI tools that can help you find prospects, organize them by intent signals, do outreach, get all the information about them so that you can put together account-based marketing approaches. All of that can really be automated and save your team a ton of time, make your partners very happy, because instead of saying, okay, go find some prospects, you can deliver them, entire package of here's people I want you to reach out with. Here's everything you need to know about their business, where they are. We can build signals around, if you're an M&A tax provider, okay, they just had a big transaction, let's reach out and talk to them about it. So you can really build, this really specific outreach. And that's really important. I don't want to get away from point that I want to get away from, especially with the content too, is that the content in AI is a starting point, but it's not the solution. You absolutely, absolutely need to have your team, your thought leaders reviewing everything, making sure it's accurate. AI hallucinations are a very real problem. They must be addressed. And so, it's not something you can just replace your marketing or your thought leaders with. It's something that's going to help them accelerate the go-to-market process, but not replace them.
Yeah, and something I just saw today, actually, which I didn't know with ChatGPT, and again, I haven't looked into how real it is, but apparently in a lot of the content that they actually deliver as well, like if you ask it to write an article or anything like that, it actually has code built into it. So if you just copy and paste it, right, there's actually, if you then turn it on to view the code side of it, there'll be certain code pieces throughout. Mm-hmm. So it's very easy to actually then see what has been generated from ChatGPT. And I wouldn't be surprised Copilot as well and all these other ones. But so there's these elements that, again, people need to think about, because now you're producing this content. If you really don't have any input to it whatsoever, now, okay, there are ways to, and I'm sure that will come up in the future, where it's like, okay, now we see that this was just generated by AI, it wasn't you. So it's just something I saw today, actually.
Yeah, and that's where it can really backfire, is if, content is, you're supposed to be a thought leader, and if people are going to your website thinking they're going to get some original and unique perspective, and it's very obviously AI generated, and they're going to immediately click away. But there's an entire field of prompt engineering that's really essential. And that's one of the great tools that's actually very easy to use in content generation, is training a GPT or a tool to own your brand voice, to speak in certain ways and double, triple check the information that it's providing back to you. It's really important to be an expert in building those prompts, so to avoid some of these issues.
So now, when it comes to, out of interest, now shifting just a little bit across to the outsourcing side, right? I mean, you've been with MGO, right? You've been with Grant Thornton. So you've sort of seen both firms had quite established back offices, especially like MGO in the more recent years, right? When you were there, like they sort of even started offering their services to other firms and things like that with their back office in India. So what did the marketing, or what role did marketing play when coordinating with the outsourcing firm? And was there any sort of like brand building to get partner buy-in internally or anything like that that you have seen happen? Any of these organizations to really bring their outsourced center to be more of a cultural fit or to be more of a fit into their US offices or anything over the years? Like, is there any recommendations there or anything you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was happy to be at MGO when they first launched their Global Center of Excellence in India. And so I was on the both internal comms teams and the outbound marketing teams, and where we talked about it. And I think it's really important that people understand in this industry that there was a sort of a bias against this idea of outsourced solutions, but that's really changed in the last 20 years. I think the broader culture understands that the work that's coming from these outsourced areas is just as of high quality. And one thing we did was we didn't hide it. We elevated it. We celebrated it. We made it a point of differentiation for our approach. We could save partially because I think people understand that you're going to save money on fees by utilizing these kinds of things. And that's something that people want to know. They would prefer that things would cost less as long as the quality is still there. And secondarily, it sped speed to market and knowing that you had essentially 24/7 resources available that you could count on meeting your deadlines and that kind of thing. So I think it's actually a largely missed opportunity to differentiate and celebrate. So that's from an external standpoint. And from an internal comms standpoint, I think it's equally important to make sure that your outsourced teams do feel like they are equal members of the firm, equal contributors, because they are. And so we did a lot to make sure we incorporated, let's say, the holidays that were important to our various centers into our broader calendar, to celebrate promotions and changes in staffing and things like that. When we opened a new office, we treated it exactly the same as if we did it here in the States. And so I think that really went a long way to sort of build community, to make those interactions internally stronger, which just improves the product altogether.
Very cool. Now, when we talk about the like celebration side of it, right? And you talked about the holidays and achievements. I think just a point there to mention is it depends on the culture. It depends where a firm goes to outsource. However, like in India, for example, like those types of celebrations go a long way, right? I mean, just for the personality, the business culture as well, it's very common that they have like their birthdays celebrated in the business, right? And they always have a birthday cake, and it's and again a shared thing, right? So a lot of these smaller traditions, right, are great things to sort of publish, right? Again, it's a little bit weird to us sometimes. Like, it's one thing having a birthday cake in the office, right? It's a different side of it when they actually share the birthday cake with their hands and they eat from each person. Right. So I've been part of that. And again, the first few times it was a little bit weird for me, and then you just sort of get used to it. But it was again, you just sort of embrace it, and it ends up being like quite a cool thing to see that's different. So now when we are, and again, MGO, quite established when it comes to their outsourcing. Now, and I think you had mentioned as well that you personally use other resources offshore yourself now. And I think that's an important element to sort of touch on, because a lot of firms, and I agree, I see it a lot where we talked about the market, and they don't necessarily invest as much in marketing experts, right? They'll maybe have a CPA that is pushing towards that marketing side of it, and we'll do little bits here and there and help coordinate things till they reach a certain size, rather than investing in having somebody that's a marketing expert, right? Same thing when it came to the sales side and business development. When it comes to outsourcing, there are a lot of different roles that we can now actually take on board a lot quicker, even if it's on a fractional side of things, because the cost isn't necessarily there as well or as high from an investment perspective, right? So can you maybe talk about some of the resources that you use, right, from that stance when we could look at outsourcing or have used in the past?
Yeah. So two examples. There's who I use, and then there's what I've seen with some clients. So I think with the clients, this is really a powerful opportunity. I really don't think you can oversell the impact of AI. We really are at the sort of just at the tipping point. And so if we consider this early stage of internet, where people we have essentially slowed download speeds, and we're dialing in with phones is the equivalent of where we are with AI. And I think the great power of AI is, I think it's the most democratic technological innovation that we've ever really experienced. In that, so I bring this up because I'm just was working with a firm that had done a internal center for AI innovation. And the extraordinary thing about AI is that it's not just these apps that you might be getting sold or these sort of prepackaged ideas, extremely accessible and customizable to the way that it's built. And so there's excellent opportunity for a firm to take a look, whether it's marketing and growth, which is my area of expertise, but I see it across HR, operations, client management, all these different areas. Essentially, whatever your problem is with your firm is that you can probably create an automation, a custom built automation or agent that's going to help you. Where you used to have to hire a digital agency or a digital firm to kind of build this technology out, is that you can outsource. You can find this talent in these other countries that are automation engineers and so on, and build these resources at a fraction of the cost that it used to be. And it can have an incredible impact on you, every level of your firm's operations. And so, I was working with a client that had built this center of AI innovation in India, and they were bringing in this incredible talent. And it's, knowing to code is help, but it's not a requirement. And so that's a great opportunity. And so I do kind of a similar approach where, I pitch automations to my clients and we work through, what's their business problem? How can I help? And I have, sort of fundamental skills in building it myself. But if it gets, particularly sophisticated or complicated working with IT systems, I have a team of engineers that I work with overseas that come in at a very reasonable rate. And, we build it out together and work with the client. And similarly, I celebrate that with my go-to-market approach. I say, hey, I might be able to find somebody here stateside that can do it, but it's going to cost you 3 times as much. Here's my team, full disclosure and transparency, and we can all talk. And so you get comfortable, and as long as it works, everyone should be happy.
Yeah, no, and it's and the other thing when we're thinking about that from a CPA firm's perspective, I think one of the challenges that firms maybe have when it comes to outsourcing their accounting, their tax, their audit, right? At the end of the day, that's the primary deliverable, right, that they are providing the client, right? These are support mechanisms, right, for your firm to grow, right? When it comes to hiring software developers, hiring engineers in the background, right, to work on this type of thing, hiring an IT support team, right, to support your internal IT department, marketing, business development. All these functions, right? Again, you have to figure out what can work for you. And a lot of these roles can be drivers, right? They could be the ones doing it just fully, wholeheartedly. Okay, my IT support's there, right? Or you can have pure just support systems, right? Virtual admins to help support your partners, making sure their emails get done and followed up on, nothing falls through the cracks, right? But also take that admin work off your team. Right. But so there are a lot of background sort of non-client facing roles that can be done in a firm. And it's just about making a plan, right, to figure out. And it's less risky. And I use quotations because it's not a deliverable going to the client. Right. So you may have a bit more flexibility and you're not an expert at it. So your expectations are probably going to be lower when it comes to the actual deliverable coming back to you in a lot of cases. So very cool. So when we're talking about the AI in marketing, going back to that, like whether it's a big firm, right, whether it's a small firm, what is sort of the ideal time and what are the ideal things that firms should be doing when it comes to the AI in marketing?
Yeah, as far as timing is, I don't want to say you're too late because you're never too late, but now sooner the better. With big firms, traditionally, there's a lot at stake. There's, SOC requirements and audit and AICPA kind of regulations that they are necessarily have to be very careful with. And so they've been relatively slow, necessarily slow to implement and get AI operations going at every level of their operations. But it's a tremendous opportunity for smaller firms to really make a splash. So just at the basic economics level of, if you have a marketing team of 5 people, a writer, a designer, a coordinator, and then an SDR, something like that. If you take that team and give them one leader to empower them all with AI, they can be outproducing much larger teams. It really gives you the power to punch above your weight class when executed correctly. So I think that's the most exciting thing for me is these kind of smaller firms who are less traditional in their approach across the board. accounting is kind of an old school industry in general, and it's a little slow to adopt new technologies. And people who don't follow that mindset can absolutely accelerate growth in a dramatic fashion. And what they should be doing, I think, building your growth engine around AI is an absolutely must-have. Instead of having a large team of sales folks who are out there, you can build some automations and have one person doing the work of what 5 to 10 folks used to be able to do, and much, much faster. I think that's probably the biggest, most immediate opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it's the profession as a whole, right? We've got a lot of restrictions, right, around what a firm can do, right? There's a lot of, again, with the sensitive data that they're dealing with, I think that there's a much longer learning curve to do using it, right, in a lot of cases. And I think in the bigger firms, right, there becomes a lot of politics that goes on, right, as to how they can use a lot of these tools now. But I'll say, I mean, I was talking to somebody in a top 100 firm the other day, and they were saying that they were fully embracing AI, and that they would have one meeting, all the managers every month, and they would talk about, okay, how are we using it, right? They would use it in their, I believe it was Copilot, but within their ecosystem, right, you can sort of narrow it down. But there are these bigger firms now starting to say, like, guys, we're pulling the ropes off, the chains off, essentially. Like, go use it as you can. Please try figure out how to use it for your clients more, right? Because again, at the end of the day, we need to figure out safe ways of doing it. But again, you have to use it. If it's a tool that can be used, the people that will win are the ones that understand how to use it the best, right? It's going to replace. It's going to replace certain functions, right? And I think the nervousness is how much is it going to replace? But it's knowing how to use it is the important piece, right? Which is where this like prompt engineering has come in as like such a top need in probably the more recent years. It's going to be like a huge profession.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently had an engagement with a top 10 firm on a smaller content project, and they had an AI policies that no one could use it due to security concerns. Yeah. And I was like, people are using it whether you want them to or not. It wasn't that they're hiding their heads in the sands, but there are firms who are just like, it's not for us. Let's pretend it's not happening. Or they'll do a blanket policy that just says, don't do it, and maybe put some blockers around the major sites. But people still have their phones. They have their alternate community. It's much, much better to be open to it, build policies around it, control the environment most essentially, so that you don't have information going out that shouldn't be, and then be educating folks on, because they're going to be using it. They are already using it. I promise. It's better to embrace that.
Yeah. And again, some conversation, I've had one recently that I was a little bit taken back. Again, it's he wasn't the youngest guy in the room, but he was saying, like, I use ChatGPT more than I use Google now, right? In terms of actually like searching for things and organizing things just beforehand, because he's like, I could go and search and then I have to click through all the links and get to it, or I can just type in the question and then get an answer, right? And now the validation of, again, you're going to get varieties of answers, right, in a lot of cases as well, but it's summarizing it for you. It's making life easier and way quicker to do it, right? But we have to be careful with the information at the end of the day. So, Now, so what would you, as we're sort of wrapping up, like, what is the best way for people to reach out to you? And is there any other takeaways that you would like to sort of share with anybody if they're listening and they're currently not using AI or very limited use of AI, especially when it came to the marketing side of things? What's the best first step that they can take to even just look into it? Maybe that would be a good place to sort of wrap.
Sure. Yeah. So honestly, if you're just sort of AI curious, going into ChatGPT and putting in as detailed a prompt, sort of describing your business and your business use case and asking it for suggestions, and it will output sort of a basic level approach to what you might be thinking about. What are the opportunities and things like that? I think that's a good place to start. And like I said, the AI is democratizing. You don't need to be able to code to start to implement these things. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can definitely go in there and start building your own automations and things like that. And like, as you had alluded to before, there are just subtleties to, what programs work well together, what are the kind of nuances, what's the prompt engineering best practices and things like that. Yeah, you can definitely get into it and start. There's actually great resources, a lot of folks on YouTube who just have entire channels that's showing how to set up automations and things like that will just walk you through it. So it's really easy to get started. And then if you just want to get to the next level of, thinking strategically about how we could be using this and what are the kind of use cases that could help us. I've built my service, I call it a fractional CMO, but I don't really intend to step in and, replace a CMO necessarily. I shouldn't be considered like a threat to anyone's role. I want to come in and provide my expertise and consult and, help chart a path forward that folks can follow and that's accessible. So yeah, the best way to reach out to me is to visit my website. It's kailos.ai, KAILOS.ai, and learn about kind of what me and my team do, and happy to do consultations.
Perfect. No, and we'll post all your information when the podcast gets released as well. So we'll have that all there for everybody to be able to access. And just as a quick summary, right? I mean, AI is here to stay. I think a lot of people are a little bit nervous to embrace it, right? But especially when we are looking at our firms, it doesn't all need to be looking at it from the productivity side of the actual accounting, the output, the product you're providing, right, your clients. Let's look at all those supporting roles, right? Let's look at the marketing. Let's look at growth. Let's look at business development, IT, right? These are all functions that you will find a lot more comfortable to look at when it comes to utilizing AI. And these are all, again, ways that you're going to be able to just hit way above your weight class, right? When it comes to certain areas of your business and create these plans, right? I mean, it's a great piece of advice of that. Go and explain who you are to your AI, whether you're using Copilot, whether you're using ChatGPT. You don't need to put in sensitive information, but put in enough information for it to understand. And then try and get a bit of a plan together. Even if you want to think about the plan first and see how much more detailed it comes back, right? When you'll be very pleasantly surprised, I'm sure. So, but really appreciate it, Chris. And we'll wrap up there. And we hope to see everyone on the next episode of Business Beyond Borders. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Laurence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.